Everyone feels safe. Oh, okay. Thank you. Hello, new things on where are we? YouTube. Sorry, God, this is going really well. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here and we are doing the cutting plan for this kit. Many of you have already bought it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And 4 of the people who have bought it are sitting here. Hello, ladies. We are at our residential retreat. We've just done a full 360 of the room and bouncily, sorry. We are doing our residential retreat and 4 of the ladies are doing the kit here. So I thought, what better way to show you what it is we're doing, how we're doing it, and how we're cutting it. Whose is that? Can you please put it salvage to salvage? It's great having people here. When they've done it wrong, you just tell them to fix it. Right. So first thing you're going to do, you are going to press all of your fabric as close as you can to doing it, okay? You're gonna have 11 pieces of color. You're gonna have half a meter of white, black, half meter of black, and then you're gonna have just over, I think it's 2¼ meters of white. So we're gonna start with the easiest one of all, the black. You've got to make the decision now, before you start cutting, the binding. Are you gonna do black binding, or are you going to do scrappy multicolored binding? And we're now going to do this together. Sandra Iomi, hello. Multicolored or black binding?
Black.
Multicolored or black?
Black, please.
Multicolored or black?
I'm going to go multicolored.
Oh, that means you can't do the extra project.
Oh, I'm going to go black.
What are you doing?
Multicolored.
You can do multicolored. Jill doesn't need the little baby quilt. Now, the reason that's important is if you're going to do the black binding, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to cut the black binding first. Now, as you know, I don't have the money for these super duper ones at fancy schmancy things, so this is the up and down button, so apologies in advance. Okay, so you've got your black piece of fabric here. If you have pressed it really nicely, you are all good and wonderful and happy. The quilt, now we've got to do maths here. Block your Amazon device. Alexa, what is 28 times 3 divided by 40? She's not listening to me now. 28 times 4 divided by 40. Alexa, what is 28 times 4 divided by 42?
28
Can someone get a phone?
times 4.
Alexa, what's 784 divided by 42?
Times 2 squared 28. 18.6.
Okay, it's not working. Jill, can you get a calculator, please? Pretty please.
This is good.
Thanks, Leslie. Right, so whenever you are doing any form of cutting, you cut a clean edge. Because no matter how neatly you cut your fabric in the shop, you will always end up with a bit of a wobble. So we've got 28 inches times 4 divided by 40.
Divided by 40?
Yep.
2.8.
I said 42, that's why it got complicated, didn't I? So you're going to cut 3 widths of fabric at 2½ inches. That,
40 or 42?
3 will do fine. Thank you, Leslie. As you can tell, I haven't had my coffee this morning. So for your binding, you're going to cut 3 2½ inch strips of your black. Okay? So that's your black cut. That's your binding. Okay? So your binding just gets folded and put to one place. Then when we look at the pattern, the first border, you need to do the first border there. Now, I know how wide it is. In the pattern, you will see how wide it is. I'm just going to double check how wide it is. So you only need to do 2 of this, the width of fabric that you need it to be. Okay, so for border number 1, you need 2 width of fabric strips. Now, I always suggest, especially with borders, when you do this, firstly, cut all the way through the fabric, but also cut your selvage off now, because the number of people I've seen put borders on quilts and end up with little tiny holes. Okay, so that is your border number 1. And then your border number 2 is slightly bigger, Border number 2 is slightly bigger. You're going to need 3 strips for border number 2. But you may, I'm going to do 4 because it just means you don't need to join your pieces together. You will have left over. Heather, do you mind just hanging on for a few minutes? Sorry, love. Right. Oh, that's 2. Right, so there, oh, borders, thingies. Right, so you've got your 4 for your outer border. That is your borders and binding, and this is what you've got left. So you've got more than enough. If you make a blupsy, you've got it done. Now the next bit we're going to do are the coloured pieces. I've got a whole load here. I feel very comfortable cutting multiple pieces. If you do, fantastic. Try not to cut more than 4, even if you are confident, because it's not, and make sure you've got a fresh rotary cutter blade in. Do not hurt yourself, rather do multiple cuts. You've just got to be safe. Okay, now they were in an order. They probably aren't now once you've done the cutting. Now I'm going to rotate my fabric and get myself a nice clean edge over here. And by doing that, what I'm doing is I'm lining it up on the mat just past a number so that I can get a nice clean line, because it just gives you a nice good starting point to then start cutting from. Okay, so that gives me my nice clean line. Now the tip to check you've done it well, pull the pieces off and pull them apart and check you've got all 4 of the colors in it. If they haven't all gone the full length, it means you haven't got a full plumb line all the way along. So do that first. And get rid of your selvage. Okay. I fold this back, check I've got all the little dots, and there I have all the little dots. Okay, so you've now got 2 dead straight lines. This one and this one are completely straight. So when you pick this up to rotate your fabric, just make sure you're very gentle and you're not messing anything around. I then line this up on my ruler here. I then do a 2.5 inch width of fabric strip. And this is only half a width of normal fabric. So you've got this piece is either your 2.5 inch scrappy border or the fabric for your extra project. That is your choice entirely. There is this much fabric left over, so you can do with that as you wish. If you want to do scrappy binding, there's your scrappy binding. But if you want to do this project, you hang on to that for a minute. Okay, so now we've got this bit. Now this, we cut this as wide as you can get it. I'm looking at roughly 3¼ inches there. So I'm going to cut that at 3¼ inches. Okay, it's okay if this doesn't go 3¼ inches the whole way along. It is already a lot bigger than you need it to be. So you can tell that the light green over here is ever so slightly in. That is fine. Okay, so now we measure this. I've measured this at 21. So 21 divided by 4 is 5¼ So all I do next is this is straight, and this is straight. So I rotate my fabric there, and I cut, lining the top of my ruler up there, and here I cut my first 5¼ and then I cut my second 5¼ and my third and my fourth. You don't need to trim the edges off this one, but I like it to be a little neat as you can. So now what you do is you separate these into your colors. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and you just separate these all out into the different colors. And you're going to do this 11 times for all of your fabric. So these work out to roughly 3¼ by 5¼ for each piece. Now, the one thing you do need to remember as well when you're doing this and you've cut everything is you need to arrange these in the color order of the quilt. So if I bring the quilt back, the cornerstones are red and your brightest orange. So those are your cornerstone blocks. So these two fabrics are your red and your bright orange, okay? So if I put that there, you can see those are these two colors here. Then you've got your normal orange, you've got your yellow, you've got your dark green, and you've got your light green. Then of the remaining colors, you've got your lightest blue, your blue, and then you've got your bright blue. Then you've got your lavender, and you've got your plum. Now the reason this is important is when you come to the FPP instructions, you will see at the top it says red and bright orange, red, bright orange. So I know that all 4 of my cornerstones for that are going to be those 2 colors there. And the reason I find this important is what I do is, like my first one here, block 1, I know that it's called, I've called this mustard because it was a bit more mustardy in the picture, in the thing, yellow and dark green. So I know that those are the 3 colors that I'm doing for block 1. So I think it's really important that when you're doing this, set this out, that you've got everything lined up ready to go. And then the next one is obviously light green, the lightest blue, and the blue. So I'm going to cut those 2 next so that my block 2 is ready to go and I've got all my fabrics together. You may choose not to do it that way. This is what I found works really well. Hello. We have a visitor. And I know that these are the colors here that I need, so I'm putting those at the above there. And I'm now going to cut my orange, red, blue, light blue, and blue. And then my last 3 cuts will be my plum, my lavender, and my bright blue. And we're doing exactly the same as we just did. All of the colors on top of each other. You get your 2 plum lines, cut your 2.5-inch square strip. Right, so we've done that. I'm going to trim my salvage off first. Get myself a little plumb line on this side. Now, I do not see, no, and I'm not even going to do it. Rotate your fabric, line it up, because that's how you do cut your fingers off. We do not want people hurting themselves making a quilt. And again, remember to pull each of these pieces up to check that they're completely whole, and those are. Okay, so first things that we do, that's all lined up. Well, that's plum, and you then cut your 2.5-inch width of, half width of fabric strip, which you will use for either your extra bonus project or for your scrappy binding. And then these, remember we cut this as wide as it'll go. This is just a little bit shy of 3 1/4. It's about 3 1/8. And I slide that down just to get a little plumb line at the top. So just like before, we're going to cut this to 5 1/4. And you can see it's really quick and easy when you get going on it. 5 1/4. I wonder if my little assistant would like to come and separate the colors for us. My Saturday girl can come around the edge. You don't have to come into shots. The lovely Saturday girl is going to organize all of that. Thank you, ma'am. Look, it's the Saturday girl. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Right, so the last 3 pieces we're doing, this is now for block number 3, which is our plum, our lavender, and our bright blue. So exactly like what we've done before, we're going to cut the plum line over here. Check you've got all 4 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 3 pieces at this stage. And I'm now cutting off my selvage piece over here. So I've got that straight, this straight. Pick those up, line it up. Okay, so that's my scrappy binding or leftover bits there. I'm cutting this to 3 1/4 over here. And again, turning this, and we're going to go with 5 1/4 all the way along. Thank you, ma'am. And then our last 3 colours are being sorted by our lovely Saturday girl now. So what we've got here is the cornerstones. We know that number A1 is red and A4 is bright orange. And then for our colour number 3, we're starting with our light green as A1, our lightest blue as A4, and our bright blue as A7. And as if by magic, the bright blue, lavender, and plum have just come to me right across there, just by magic. We've got the bright blue, we've got the lavender, and we've got the plum. Okay, so now you are all ready and lined up with your colors to do your FPP process. So the colors are all sorted. All that's left to do now is that you put these on top of each other. Don't sneeze, don't drop them on the floor, don't let one of your gorgeous pets and animals come and jump on it. Put your borders on the top there, and that is ready to sew. The only thing I need now is a piece of white fabric. Thank you, ma'am. So the first thing you're going to do with the white fabric is get it all selvage to selvage. Thank you very much, Mrs. Barnes. Oh, was that Saturday Girl as well? Okay. So the first thing we're going to do, now I am going to turn this to your face because you need to look into my eyes for this. We are here not to use a lot of fabric. We need to create boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of stash that we will never use. So we are going to now be as absolutely, I want to say miserly, but that's a nasty word. We're going to be as conservative as humanly possible and keep every single scrap of this fabric. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you now how you cut everything out in order to get the most maximized pieces out of this. So we're cutting a 16.5-inch square, firstly. Then we have to cut lots of 4-inch squares, and then we need to cut backing, and then whatever's left, we divide by 4 for the border for this. So I know, math, we don't want to do math. So I'm going to make this nice and easy for you. First thing we're going to do is, it helps if your fabric is as flat and as straight as possible, okay? So I'm now lining this up on here, trying to get your selvages as close as possible together. So this, oh, poop. So this is where we are, okay? So the first thing we're going to do, just like every single cut we've done so far, I'm going to do a plumb line over here. Now, with the plumb line, please be careful as you're cutting this. Do not hurt yourself. I am doing this in a way that you shouldn't. I'm experienced at this. Don't do it like this. Turn your rotary cutter mat. But do not cut your hand. Right. So we've now got a straight line over here. The selvages over here are going to be trimmed off. And we're looking to get, and it helps if you line this up first, John. I'm just going to recut that line over here. It's a tiny little bit off there. Right. So I need a 16.5-inch square. which is going to take me to 21.5. I know I could have done the math of that in my head as an ex-accountant, but I always triple check first. Okay, now this piece here, I am gently sliding out the way. I am not moving because then I have to recut that line. Okay, so that's first, and then I'm rotating my piece of fabric and I'm going to cut my selvage off. Okay, line your fabric up with your board there and over here, and then you just nip this bit of selvage off. Now, in my gusto to do this, I promptly then moved my ruler down here, and I ended up with two 16.5-inch squares. You don't need that. So what I'm going to suggest you do is open your fabric up. Don't do what I did. Okay, so now I'm looking for a 16.5 again, which I line up here. So that's taking me to 4.5 on my mat. And I line that up there. I'm hoping you can see this. And again, I'm experienced at cutting this way. Please do not do it that way. Rotate your board. Okay, so you've got a 16.5-inch square here, which is where you're going to go and put all of your gorgeous lettering. Okay, do that first. Because if you don't do it first and you try and stitch it on when it's all got the borders on, it's a lot more difficult. So now take your letters and go and stitch them on. You don't have to, but then you end up like me. Doing that. Right, so that is your square for the middle. Don't crease it. So now we've got this piece over here, and of course we are very economical with our fabric. We want to make sure that we use every single scrap of it. So you're going to cut as many 4-inch squares out of this as you possibly can. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up, and I'm going to cut off this extra 1/2 inch that I've got on the end over here, making sure everything is lined up. Rather triple check it. Okay. So the measurement from here to here is 16. So I'm going to get 4 strips out of here. Now I'm doing this very, very loosely. I'm not moving the fabric at all. So I'm going 4, and 4. Okay, I've got a leftover piece here, so you take that to your scrap bin, and the next time you look, there will be 15 of them, because they breed when you're not looking. So next, you've got your next 4 cut over here. Now notice I am not moving anything. There is a reason for that. You don't have to do it this way, but personally, I find it a lot easier. So there's 4, and there's 4. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. There. Right, so we've now got 2, 4, 6, 12, 24 squares. Okay, so if you leave it all like that, and you just take your ruler, and you go corner to corner, corner to corner, corner to corner. I know, the first time I showed the girls this in the office, they were like, what have you done? That doesn't make sense. How have you done that? Okay. Oh, poo. Now, if you do get to that point where you have moved everything, it is actually better to take this bit out, realign it, and cut it. But if you hadn't accidentally bumped the fabric out in that whole piece, you then would have had 44 half-square triangles cut out exactly perfectly by just leaving the fabric in place, and you didn't have to do anything. So you've got 44 now, sorry, 48, and we need 88 in total, okay? So that means I need to do 88 strips. So we've got a 40, now work this out with me, boys and girls. We've got 40 inch width of fabric means I get 10 squares out of each width. So I need 40, so I need 4 widths of fabric. Is that right, girls? Right, all good? We're gonna cut 4 4-inch squares now, 4-inch width of fabric pieces. But of course, I like to be very methodical, and I don't have a huge amount of time in my life. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna take my fabric here, and I'm gonna create a second plumb line. Okay, because now I've got that plumb line and that line there. So now,
And each one of those is 20. So you need two.
I know. Are you sure? Oh yes, there's 2. Oh, never mind.
Did you cut each square
Yep.
in half?
So if you now do, my Saturday girl has just pointed out I only need 2 width of fabric strips, not 4, because obviously you're cutting them in half, so you get 20 per thing. Thank you, Saturday girl. Her name's Jill, by the way, if anybody wants to send her a message. Now, because I was moving around and I leant on the fabric, I'm cut that a bit wider than I should have. So that is what we need there. Okay, so I'm going to rotate this around to get my 4-inch line on this side. I wish I was Donna Jordan, being able to just do that whoosh, whoosh thing. She is so good at that. Do you know who Donna Jordan is? Do you know? She's amazing. You've got to go and watch Jordan Fabric. She does the most amazing cutting videos where she puts a barbell on the end and just goes whoom, and she's got this really amazing YouTube noise that does it all for her. Right. We're almost there, girls. I've got all my lovely ladies for the retreat sitting here all muted at the end. They're lovely. I can feel them glaring at me right now. Because I know a lot of people want to get going on this now, and I thought that was why I shared a video on how to cut it all. And again, important, they go with the other scraps that we can use for something at some point. No one will ever use them. They go in a box. Whose fabric am I cutting? Linda's?
Yeah.
Are you backing this in white or are you backing it in calico?
I haven't decided on that.
Well, you need to decide now because I have to cut.
Oh.
You're covering it in black in this, so thank you for that. So there we have our 88 white squares going with our FPP in this pile over there. So you dump that over there. So at the moment we've cut out our central block, we've cut out border 1, this is border 2, and we've cut out border 3, and we've cut out our backing.
No, I'm not backing it in.
You're not backing it in that. Right, so Linda Barnes is not backing this in this, but if Linda Barnes was backing this in this, what we would do, given I have a finished quilt here already, is you take this. If you're putting on a long arm, you need a few inches extra, and you cut off here what you need. And this is what you use left over to divide by 4 to go on to your extra project, which is this.
So those white on there are 4-inch squares?
Yes.
Thank you.
Which ones?
The outside ones. The sachet, no.
Oh, these? No, these were just whatever was left over, I divided by 4.
Oh, okay.
So for you, so Linda Barnes is going to be backing her quilt in something else. So the extra bit of white that she's got for the backing, she doesn't need for that. So she can make this as big as she likes. She can do a 10-inch border on it if she wants to, whatever works for her. So that's why in the kit, you now decide if you want to put the backing. This was a piece of backing that I had just lying around, so I used this for this piece. So you may have a piece of fabric, it's going against a wall, it's unlikely to be seen again, so you can back it in whatever you choose. If you are going to back it in this white fabric, you then cut off your backing, and whatever's left over in the pieces here, you cut it into 4, so this piece is going to be, right, we're going to do math again. So this is 22 inches divided by 4 is?
4.5.
22 divided by 4. 5.5. So you'd cut these into 5.5-inch strips.
5.
I thought you said 12.5. That's why I was looking at you blindly. Saturday Girl and I aren't communicating well today. Sorry, Saturday Girl, my fault. So whatever you got left of the piece of fabric, you then cut off your pieces, and that will be the piece for that. Okay? In Linda's case, do you want this to be, because you've got all the fabric left,
No, I'm going to do it different.
you're going to do it differently. Linda's doing it differently. So there we go. So that is the cutting of it. Now the extra project that you're going to do, I'm going to show you really simply on what you're doing on that. So Linda Barnes gets to take that whole giant piece left over, and I'm going to throw it at her now. And she still laughs, so that's good. Now, if you want to know how to do your extra project, you've now got your width of fabric strips over here. You can put these in whatever order you choose. I'm going to keep it in the order of my flying geese. Shh. We're trying to do a very professional video here, Linda Barnes. Then she's flicking her flaps at us.
Oh, you threw it at me.
They keep coming back. That's what's astonishing to me. Right, so what you do is you lay these all out in a border like that. Okay, you're going to sew these strips together. You're going to sew this one from that direction to this direction, and then this one you're going to sew from that direction to that direction, and you're going to alternate directions in the sewing. Otherwise your fabric will start to lean in one direction. That is because of the weight of the fabric, the arm, the tension. There are many reasons for it, but never ever sew everything in the same direction. So you don't go from there to there, there to there. You always sew from this end to that end to that end, all the way through, and you've got all 11. Press your seams. Get your seams beautifully pressed all the way along. Once it's all pressed, you then take your ruler and you cut these at 2.5 inches all the way along. I think I managed to get 8. Just checking.
Yeah.
I got 8 out of the thing, so if you then wanted to do 8, that's absolutely fine, so you'll end that. Otherwise, you can do it how you choose. And then I just moved them down. Once I'd sewn them all together, I sewed them into a ring, and then I just moved them up and down.
Yeah.
So you've got them in a loop, so,
Like when you do crochet. Yeah, exactly.
so you can tell. Sorry, I'm folding my fabric. So you can tell that's how I had the first one there, but I sewed them all in a ring, and then all I did then was then had it in a loop, and then I unpicked between there, and that was my first one, and the purple was down the bottom. And then on the second one along, I unpicked the seam between there, and then that went down to the bottom. And then as I did the next run along, you can see how it's going all the way along, doing it that way. You can do it how you choose. You can add colors to it. If you need more of these colors, I've got them in the shop. Drop me a line and we can do that. But, if I'm not mistaken, that will get you cut out. The instructions on how to put your letters are in there. The border, first border is done. So if you want to do the class on the 18th of February, we will then be ready for you, and you would have done the lettering in the beginning. You can crack on with the FPP as well. You don't have to attend the class. It's just a case if you wanted to start cutting and needed some help, you've got it. So that's me, and I'm going to go and say au revoir, and I want to say goodbye to all the ladies.
Bye.
Saturday Girl.
Bye.
Are you in the frame?
I am in the
You are
frame.
now. And look, there's Kathy out the window over there, and all the lovely ladies there. So I'm sorry I've interrupted their morning. Oh, no, we don't want to do that. Sorry to have interrupted their morning and yours, but happy cutting, and we'll catch up with you soon.